So I have a lot of training in physical theater and mask work and movement, and one of the things that's always really captivated me is how much our bodies express our emotions. So through the training that I've done in Commedia dell'arte and the training that I've had in Rasa boxes, what I have pulled from that is all of the ways we can telegraph as well as change our emotional states by our bodies. It lives in us. And at the same time, I can take a shape that will read as anger or read as fear or read as jealousy or read as disgust. And maybe I will actually feel that, and maybe I won't at all. And so the fact that we have that physical capability, I find fascinating and infinitely curious.
People are fascinating, especially up close. More especially when you get them talking about the things that they love. This is From the Hip, conversations in the service of passion, purpose, and play. I'm Adrianne Gunn. You ready to play? Today on From the Hip, I'm talking to a fellow multi-thing doer, actress, entertainer, mask maker, Kate Mura, and we get to geeking out about the way in which you can utilize your body and emotions to achieve absolutely anything. I definitely have remnants of pretzel in my teeth. I just want to work that out, like you do. Okay, so I'm really glad that you said yes.
I'm so glad that you invited me.
Yay.
Like, cause I feel super similar about you and your work, and I've always been like, I keep light tabs on you, and you're like having, but the easiest way for me previously to support your work and what you're doing has been to go to gigs that you were like playing and singing at and such. And when that started to, or when I started to see those things less and see all of the like videos and things of yours more, I'm like, oh, well, that's great. I can, share your videos and such like that. But I'm like, I don't.
It's not so much the touch and say hello part.
Like, how are you?
I'm looking great. Yeah, okay. So so here's our friend.
Hello, friend.
Who's watching. So, I love to just jump in the middle. So
great, let's jump in the middle. We are recording, yes?
Yeah, I think
Excellent.
so. Yeah. Okay,
perfect.
So, like there?
Awesome.
Brilliant. We win with the positioning.
Excellent.
Okay.
Hello, Kitty.
So, I'm glad that I'm going to edit in some sort of like intro so people get what the heck's happening. And I might even edit in, if there's a way, like I'm talking with, like once we've covered how the heck to talk about you, I'll put it in the description. It'll be great. It'll work.
Sure.
But so I'm still Adrianne Gunn, and you are?
Kate Mura.
Mira. Oh my God. Mira. How do you pronounce that?
Mura.
Mira.
Yep.
I love it.
Your
it has an E in it.
Mira.
Without having an E in it. I love it. So, okay, you and I met, holy wow, is it like 8 years ago is when we met? So we met in sort of acting theater world.
Yeah.
I was getting to do some of my favorite things to do when I get to act. I don't get to do it much, and I'm gonna say I get lucky in the regards that I can play many ethnicities, and that in this city people run out of those. Or at least they used to, and I would get the email from somebody that couldn't do something because they were some color that was useful. And then I would get the email. So I showed up. I wouldn't have to audition for things in this vein. So I was called to do this show where I got to play some sort of like assistant to some sort of hip hop lord. And I got the part, and I was like in hip hop world, and I got to put on or maybe it was my idea to put on different wigs.
I don't remember whose idea it was, but I loved it.
It may have been mine. So
it was a great idea.
I had a character choice that in this hip hop world that you can play different things, and so I had 3 different wig choices.
Yep.
And you got to be my wig wrangler.
Yep. Master, mistress.
Yeah, and I still think that some of those. So I had a giant, like a platinum afro wig, which I still have.
Yes.
And we had a shape of that was gorgeous. I think there were photos online of this. And then I had this.
It should be.
This like purple wavy wig that I thought was very Little Kim, and we swooped it, and you got it in a beautiful shape. And then I just had kind of the. I call it kind of a bitch bob. Like a blonde bitch bob. What's the movie? Ant-Man? There's the woman in that has that same sort of cut.
Yes.
That's what I call it. I don't know what it's actually called.
Neither do I, but yes. I'm incredibly impressed with your memory, because I remembered that you had wigs and I remembered doing them, but I did not remember them in nearly that much detail. And
sure. Well, and it was funny because we sort of met in that world, and you had a small role for that show. You were like in the technical space, and you did these wigs, and you sort of dropped in and checked on them, and then you were sort of peripheral.
Yep. Yeah, totally peripheral. I helped produce the show on like the back end because I was a founding member of Fuse and such. But yeah, for that particular production, I was actually on tour with a different show with a different company for most of it. So like the fact that I was able to come in and be a part of that, because I am pretty sure that it was your idea.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I don't know how to consistently. Like I have some fears about being in films because I don't know who would be able to take care of like consistency of my hair. So it's really a lot easier for me to pick a wig, even if it's a wig of my hair, because somebody could futz with it, and I don't have to worry if my hair's behaving or if humidity's being weird. Like, so I get to like maintain a particular look for an entire run of a show, or.
Yeah, wigs are fantastic in that way, and I really want to just take note that there is this adorable kitten playing with my skirt, and that our fantastic cameraman is trying to get the kitten away because I'm sure it's making all sorts of like funky, awesome things happen to my skirt on camera.
So if you hear random bloppy noises, that is the essence of our show mascot, Bentley.
Yes,
who is 4 months old.
Hello, Bentley. And the little dingle of his bell, the bell on his collar.
The dingley bell happens.
Yep. So that's what the strange dingley bell is. There is a kitten that you can't see.
We shall reference. At some point, he may settle down and want to visit.
It's true.
So I was like, the daunting thing is like we met there in theater world.
Yep.
And we have still many friends that are connected in theater world, so we've crossed paths quite a bit.
Yep.
And then, so on the other side, it's not what I do the most, but I also sometimes will do tech theater support. Like I was a sound engineer for a very long time, and I sometimes
so why aren't you playing with
things.
IATSE Local 28?
Well, so I stopped doing stagehand stuff and sound things because my body didn't enjoy the hours. My body and my brain didn't enjoy the hours and the labor.
Makes
moving sense. like to be able to answer a call that may end at 6 a.m. or start at 3 or I love it. It's fun, and I had to make a shift because like sleeping regularly, dependably, so that I could be a version of me that I could be consistently was a big deal.
Sidebar, we're getting a lot more AV work in Portland. We've organized some fantastic contracts and work in hotels and things, and AV work in the IA world are some of the best contracts like across the nation, not just here in Portland. And so since you have the skills, it might be something that you want to consider, because I so hear you on the crazy hours, but AV work and hotel work is a little more set. They can still be incredibly long days.
Sure.
But they are, it is rare that there is a hotel call that begins at 3 a.m.
Fair. Yeah. They want people sleeping.
Just to drop that into your
Okay.
brain. Not that you don't have
No
lots of awesome things on your plate.
So I keep attempting to introduce. So here's the challenge and the beauty of getting to talk to you, Kate, and you getting to talk to me. Kate and I do things. I have this slogan for a long time. I do things. I help other people do things too. And it makes a lot of sense. When I go to networking events, people are like, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, what day of the week is it? So what I promote the most that I do are, at this point in my world, are my interpersonal work, helping people shift their... I spend time with a lot of entrepreneurs and creative people, helping them either shift their interpersonal baggage that are getting in the way of showing up fully in the world, or I help them with their issues in the backside of their marketing strategies. So it's either business strategy that's keeping them from reaching the clients and having the success they want, or holistically, it's interpersonal stuff, using tools to help them shift. That's the thing I tell people I do. But during the week, I love entrepreneuring. So I'm a freelancer, so I might be being a stagehand or a supervisor of some event space. I might be building a website. I might be... If I have the ability to help somebody do something and it's exciting to me, I do it. I collect money for it. Lately, I've been loving to MC events.
Yes!
Right?
Oh my god! I did one earlier this year also.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I told the company that brought me in, I'm like, if you ever need an MC for anything, and I told the sound company this as well. I'm like, if you're ever doing sound and you're like, this event needs an MC and you don't have one, call me.
Yeah.
And now I know if I'm not available, call you.
I'm gonna do that. Totally. So here's the beautiful thing about us. We love lots of things. And I bemoan sometimes the problem of being good at a lot of stuff. I'm glad I'm good at a lot of stuff, but sometimes that's a problem. Right?
Yes.
So you tell me, these days, what are the list of things that you're up to that people tend to hand you money for?
So these days, people tend to hand me money for emceeing events. They hand me money for performing in shows. They hand me money for doing stagehand work. They hand me money for tarot readings.
Oh, fun.
That's the majority of it in the last few months.
Okay, yeah. Some of my favorites in your work, I did spend some time listening to your voiceover reel stuff. You put up your website, was it 2 years ago you refreshed, or 1 year ago you refreshed?
The latest design for KateMura.com was 4 years ago.
Oh!
It
feels like yesterday.
I know. For me too. For me too. I actually, before coming to chat with you, I had a meeting with my web designer to talk about an overhaul and visioning, because I have 2 projects that I am dreaming up that one is publishing Suburban Tribe, which is my solo mask show for those of you who don't know, and publishing the version that I toured before the masks were stolen. And so I want the new site to be able to support sales of that, either e-version or in print. And then I have a 40th birthday dream, and you guys don't get to know just yet when my 40th birthday will be. You get to guess. Shifting a school bus to be a Vardo-inspired wagon that I can travel around to festivals and theaters, and have the back of it open up to be able to have a performance space, both for my solo shows and anything else that the community might want, or friends or theater companies and whatnot, and be able to do tarot readings and consultations, and have my library there so folks can look at hand-fasting ceremonies and death rites and such, and weave those worlds together and just have it all be compact and run on grease.
Totally. Okay, do they still have one of my first paid acting gigs was for It was sponsored by the electric company, so PGE, sponsored a troupe of actors to go out and perform this play about energy conservation. It was like for kids and stuff. Do they still have grants and money and way to like
some
traveling for entertaining? I don't know if you like entertaining kids, but when I saw you in a bus and traveling, I was like, there used to be a place where you could get grants and sponsorships to do education stuff. I don't know if that still exists in the world we live in.
It does.
Okay.
The funds have drastically decreased, but if I'm remembering correctly, a good friend of mine, Kelly Campbell, who she and I toured with puppetry stuff, she got a grant recently to build a puppet show along those exact lines, and I want to say it was PGE as well, but I'm not positive. And I know that in one of the years when I was working for Tears of Joy Theater, they got a grant similarly to create a puppet show dealing with water conservation specifically.
Yeah.
So I think that it is.
I think I even know that show.
Maybe.
Oh, God. Like, how many water puppet shows are there?
In Portland, I only know of that one. Across the world, I'm sure that there are more, but certainly in Portland, I only
remember
know of that
the title of the one that I knew about, but it's hilarious.
So they're out there, and I love working with kids. Actually, as a sidebar, I don't get money officially for it. I work in trade for it, but I do actually childcare for my yoga studio.
That's awesome.
And they have puppets, and so we play with the puppets when we draw. I've actually have a really horrible sketch of my Vardo wagon designing crayon that I drew with the kids, and it has some child scrawls on the side. It's super adorable.
That's sometimes how you get clear on your vision of what you're creating. Is you gotta pull out the crayons and
it's true.
Surround yourself by youth and vitality. Your dreams are open.
Yep. Actually, the last show that I did was with Oregon Children's Theater. I do. I love the children.
Nice. I don't have a lot of experience with children. I think I'm okay with that, sort of. There was one point in my life where I thought it'd be neat to. I grew up in the Boys and Girls Clubs. Because my father worked, I was mostly raised by him at home, and so I needed things to do after school, and so there were these ideas I had about maybe I'll go back and help them shoot hoops or something, or do brother sister something. The freelance world and not they like people to be kind of dependable, to be influential with kids and stuff.
Yeah. And
my schedule changes every other minute. Probably something in my phone is telling me the next week what I'm up to. You know?
Yes. So yeah, I've had a similar challenge when I was in rehearsals for Tomas and the Library Lady. I was reconnected to how, I've always stayed connected with how much I love reading and how much I love working in theater because we create the different worlds that we want to live in, literally.
Sure.
And I was like, I could so easily volunteer to help kids read. And it's something that my mom has done. I come from a line of librarians. We love books. And I'm like, I could do this. And so I actually did. I putzed around online a little bit and tried to find some places to volunteer through, and either they didn't get back to me, which did in fact make me a little sad, or the schedule that they needed to be kept, which I totally understood, was just not one that was possible. I was like,
Freelancers Challenges.
Yeah.
When you the fun thing about I agree, doing yourself for a living. The fun thing about my timing.
It was perfect.
My unconscious programming. I'm gonna get a spit take. I love that I wasn't doing that on purpose. So the fun thing about doing yourself for a living is that there's this time freedom that lots of people wish they had.
So true.
And then there's sometimes there's so much time when we're not up to stuff, and then with tons of projects squished in all one place. There are so many beautiful things about I'm just gonna say freelancing. I don't know how that's how you see it, but like being multi-passioned as an entrepreneur, there's some ups and downs about that.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
Yes, there
So
are.
I love, the people who are gonna listen to this or watch this, they're gonna miss the next time you're doing this event, but I love this event you came up with. And I want to talk about it. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah,
Just drive into something on purpose. So you just recently, what do you call this event? It's a week from now?
It is the Columbia Willamette Pagan Pride. So Pagan Pride happens every year across the country. It's almost always sometime in September. It depends on the pagan community, and pagans, we are very lightly organized, if at all. Merry band of people. So every area that has a pagan pride, it may be around the fall equinox. It may not, but most of them are in September. And so I had the idea. So I have a lot of training in physical theater and mask work and movement, and one of the things that's always really captivated me is how much our bodies express our emotions. And so through the training that I've done in Commedia dell'arte and the training that I've had in Rasa boxes, what I have pulled from that is all of the ways we can telegraph as well as change our emotional states by our bodies. It lives in us. And at the same time, I can take a shape that will read as anger or read as fear or read as jealousy or read as disgust. And maybe I will actually feel that, and maybe I won't at all. And so the fact that we have that physical capability, I find fascinating and infinitely curious.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to that because there's so much depth in just that tiny chunk. But keep talking about your event. I'm gonna go back to that.
Okay. So I have been a witch for a very long time, and one of the I don't want to say tenets because that's not really appropriate, but anytime that there is spell work happening or anytime that there is spell work happening, our emotions are part of what fuel and what charge whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
And so to be able to shift your emotional states depending on what needs to happen and what your desired goals and intentions are is important. And I started realizing that I have tools as an actor for shifting my emotional states and using my words really clearly and precisely that other people don't have. And I had completely unaware that things that I do without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Others are like, how did you do that?
Well, and it's huge to note. And again, I'm going to go back to, because like everything you're talking about, there are modalities that actually describe getting people there, that acting just has it in it already. And it's interesting that you're like, I didn't know I had those tools. Maybe on some level, you didn't say this, maybe on some level, because there's a way in which acting doesn't have the same value in our culture. Of like, people don't spend a lot of time talking about like how acting works or why it's useful. It's not the frame of mind. They're like, is it entertaining? Do I want to imbibe it? Do I want to ingest it? But like, but actors, we do a process to be able to express, utilizing our instrument, which is our body, these situations people are in, and heightened emotions. Most of the things that are good, that have been written and created to be performed, are about like the extremed and heightened situations.
Yes.
Although it would be really fun, I know part of the practice of learning to act is just sitting on alone and drinking coffee. if you can do that well, the odds are you can do the bigger moments. But generally, being able to utilize yourself to express something, it's easy to overlook it because we're in the frame of mind of I'm doing this this film shoot, I'm doing this play, I'm doing this moment, I'm doing this video. Like to overlook what it took to get there because we're putting it in one aspect. One of the things that happened for me, so I've been in the personal development world and I've been in the business marketing world and then in this creative world. When I was studying acting, I had so much emotional agility. And I didn't get how fit I was emotionally until it had been 2 months since I'd done play or rehearsals or the things you do to get warmed up and flexible to express whatever performance you're asked to do. It was like 2 months after probably the show we were in. I'm just like, all the emotions would like stick and stay, and I felt flabby. And there's so much that's in there. So when I actually went to learn communication skills and personal development to help people shift emotions and mental patterns, everything I'd learned in acting instantly applied. Right? I was like, oh, I already know this stuff. These are just new words for it. So what's funny is you almost have to explain to people why the heck an actor would be able to help you with your own emotions. If for some reason it's not obvious to them, right?
Well, and I think, yes, because a good actor, when people are taking in their performances, they're not thinking about who we are off camera or who we are off stage. And even if they have a little bit of interaction with us, whether it's, you know, signing autographs down the line with Oregon Children's Theater or, you know, running into someone on the street and like, oh my gosh, I saw your performance. It was so good. Thank you so much. Like, they're usually really short interactions. You don't, and part of, you know, one of the, there's a reason why one of the highest praises anybody can give an actor is somebody who really knows them, to be like, I had no idea which character you were for however long. Like, oh my gosh, there you go. That transformation. And for whatever reasons, many reasons, actors are frequently not very good at talking about themselves and talking them up and taking value in the work that they did to get there.
Musicians are terrible at it too.
Yes. And when actors, and I'm totally guilty of this, when it is easier for me to take praise, it is from that final moment that I really thought that you were from Germany because your German accent was perfect. Like, I asked the director where they had gotten a German actress from. And then I found out, oh, you just did that much dialect work. Like, that's easier for people to tell. I kind of, but the real work is everything beyond. It's not that final character, and and it's hard to qualify it, because for actors, we're learning in the classroom, we're learning in the conversations, we're learning from observing the world, we're learning from talking with strangers on the bus, we're learning from all of those things and all of those places. And I think that a lot of non-actors out there aren't aware of how aware actors try to be all the time.
Well, and you're going to get a point. But one of the things that non-actors don't recognize is how much they're acting. In their lives. We just sort of assume that there's this, like, well, you're only, that there are scripts that we live out and interactions that go a particular way. That every single person has strategies for showing up and doing it and who they're being. They think they're being themselves, but they're being weirdly modeled versions of other people they saw when they were little. And they're not necessarily, like, they think they're not necessarily being as effectively themselves as they could be.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
I might be talking some nonsense. So we're attempting to talk about, like, we're talking about many things, but you have a workshop you've put together from your experience in the world of acting and the tools you have there, and we can geek out about that, to help people do what specifically at this festival?
To help people change their emotional states to be able to center and do better spellcrafting.
Ooh. Okay.
Because one of the ways that pagans and witches and actors are very similar when done fully is presence and energy awareness and awareness of self as a part of a whole.
Yeah.
And so when doing spellcraft, when doing meditations, it can take some people a really long time to get into the proper state of mind or be able to get there at all. And sometimes folks will just push through and do whatever they want, and then are like, why didn't I get the outcome that I wanted?
Yeah.
Well, I was hanging on to this resentment or this anger, and I couldn't change it. And so I just, like, kept going. And you, like, I have, and so when I've heard stories like that from people, depending on my relationship with them, of course, I'll frequently ask questions like, well, what did you do to try and change that mental stuff that you had going on that you're now really sure is the reason why this went awry and you didn't actually get what you wanted, and what you did receive wasn't your actual intent, and feelings weren't, whatever it was. And a lot of times the answers that I get back are just about, like, breathing, which is great and totally important and completely a tool. But if that doesn't work, they don't necessarily know where to go next. And so when I ask questions about, like, well, where was it in your body? Did you change your posture? I have all of these tools of being able to physicalize that emotion and then change it, whether it's something super simple of rolling down your spine and rolling back up and feeling where that is and, like, taking it out of your body and putting it out into the world or in the ground, like, to transform it. Then there's suddenly this, like, I can do that?
Oh my God. Okay, you just dropped bombs.
Yes, you can.
And I don't know if people are aware. Okay, so here's the thing. So you specifically said that you're presenting this workshop utilizing your tools of acting to help people in their spellcasting. And I need anyone that's listening right now to know that whether you call yourself a pagan or a witch, you are always casting spells.
Yes.
That you are always putting breath beneath your words and asking for things in the world. And if you can become more clear about your intentions and what you're asking for, and this even goes down to, so I'm trained in hypnotherapy. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Hypnotherapy, NeuroLinguistic Programming, figuring out how there's an idea that the meaning of communication is the result that you get. So if you're casting a spell, if you're casting a spell and you don't get the results you want, that means that you didn't communicate very effectively whatever your intention was. You didn't put it out with, and there's different things you do. So nearly everything that people say out loud, another tenet, you used it earlier, of NeuroLinguistic Programming, is the idea that your words don't describe your reality, they create it.
Yes, I love, and maybe
casting spells, that's directly the same difference. Go ahead.
Absolutely. You might be able to tell me who said this quote. Okay. One of my teachers, and I can't even remember which one of my amazing teachers said it to me, and it is, like, part of my core. Change your thoughts, change your words, change your words, change your actions, change the world.
Yeah.
Do you remember who
I've
said that?
seen that somewhere.
I know. I use it all the time.
know.
Maybe one of you can help us out with who said that.
It seems pretty Tony Robbins-y. Or, no, who was the guy before Tony Robbins that just died? My dad likes him. He had shaved his head. Wayne Dyer, maybe? Does it seem very a Wayne Dyer kind of thing to say?
I don't know.
That's so good, though.
I know. And it's exactly what you're saying. And someone at Oregon Country Fair this year, there was this lovely wish wagon, and it was it was so lovely because, you know, as a witch, I have a vocabulary among my friends and community members that is not always the same, or it's just not always the same as other people. And really all a spell is a wish. And so, like, that's really all it is. It's a wish that we put a little more, like, energy and thoughtfulness and other, like, tools into, because we want to make that wish more powerful and more potent. But really all it is a wish.
Well, I think many people will relate to spell casting in the terms of, if you talk to someone out loud and then find yourself later having sex with them, it is very likely that the two of you have done two things. You've cast spells, and you've also hypnotized each other. So if you take two worlds that generally people don't quite know about, we were already talking acting, people don't get it. Witchcraft and spells, people don't get it. Hypnotherapy, people don't get it. But we're saying you're already doing it.
Yeah.
You're already being a participant and utilizing your physicality and yourself to communicate things to people all the time, whether you're doing it effectively or not.
Yes.
You are acting in the world. You're playing a role that you've taken on. You have some sort of intention that you're trying to serve, which that's the director gives you an intention, or as an actor and in your role, you have an intention. Everyone's doing that. They have some sort of intention. I want to buy pretzels at the grocery store. These are the things I encounter.
I need to save $50.
Right. So we all have intentions. We all have only this self as our main resource. We have each other as a resource, and some of us are more effective at utilizing ourselves and utilizing each other. And you have to cast your own spells to utilize yourself well. It's your mindset, your thought patterns, your ability to, like, oh man. Tony Robbins' entire career is mostly about mindset and state control. Boom, billionaire. Plus, right? He might have a different niche than you do.
I think you might be right.
Right? Yep. But yeah, the frame where you're looking at it from, like, hypnosis, people don't think that they're doing, but they're doing it all the time. You're always hypnotizing somebody to do something or not. And you might not be very good at it.
Yep.
And bodies. Holy crap, the stuff you were dropping about bodies. This culture, and when I say this culture, I mean the United States specifically, and its version of Western culture, not very good at prioritizing and valuing emotions. That's a huge thing we're gonna have to figure out and work out. Not really good at valuing and working on, like, connecting to our bodies. That's huge. Your bodies not only express emotion and feel emotion, they store it.
Oh yeah.
What we're great at is stuffing down and numbing emotion. And then we don't know it's stuck in our bodies until we go to the massage therapist because we have some sort of injury, and then they push something in our calf, and then we're crying about that thing our brother did.
Yep. Or going to acupuncture for my knee after an injury at the Rose Garden, and literally seeing moray eels exit from my knee and go out the window. And I was like, oh, well, that was a lot of fear, because when I was 8 years old. I was swimming in Hawaii, and with my parents, we were snorkeling, and my parents had gone further out, and I was a little closer to the shore, but I was in water well above my head, so I was already a little uncomfortable, but you know, it's Hawaii, so it's all like beautiful. And I see a moray eel. And I had, I know. And thank the goddess, the day before, my parents had taken me to, I'm not sure if it was a museum or an aquarium, but it was something that literally talked about moray eels and what to do if you encountered them in the wild, which was basically to stay completely still because they are blind, but they sense all of the water ripples. So they go after their food and will shock you and to eat you if they start like feeling your movement. And so I saw that, and I'm in the water, and I'm like terrified to breathe, and I'm terrified because my parents are gone, like out there, and I'm like, I don't want the moray eel to get my parents, and I don't want the moray eel to get me. And I have no idea how long the moray eel was there until it like went off in a completely other direction, and I waited until I couldn't see it anywhere.
Yeah.
And then I waited a little longer, and then I was like, where the fuck are my parents? And I was like freaking out a little bit, and then my parents finally came back, and I was like, okay. I had held that fear in my knees. Right? This happened, the acupuncture that released it out happened when I think that injury happened when I was about when I was in my, maybe 30, yeah. We're gonna say 32, somewhere thereabouts. That's for a long time. That's over 20 years of fear, and I had subsequent knee issues like throughout my entire teenage and 20-somethings. That sometimes they were big, sometimes they were small, but ultimately what it all came down was holding fear in my knees.
Right, and what you don't know is, whenever you decided to hold your fear there, maybe thematically that's there, because if you read, what is it, Carolyn Miss, she writes about different physiological issues and the different thematically where they are in the body.
Like if you're, I think she's the one who, like if you have trouble with your knees, it's in part like you're not going into the next phase of your life as like strongly and boldly as you can and or should be doing.
And
same
feet
person.
And knee issues are also related to first chakra family issues and
that
like
makes sense.
Some of that kind of stuff. But like thinking about like, now, is that where your body decided to store fear, and so you had enough fear in there and that's why you had knee trouble? Or is it, I mean, it's like, it's kind of chicken egg there. Yeah. But it turns out, that our bodies are useful. We do things with them. We store memories, we store emotions, and when we can get more flexibility, when we release tension, we release traumas, we release old memories. Like, people don't know how to be in relationship with their body, how to utilize it. And the thing is, you were talking earlier about when you were casting that spell, were your shoulders tense? Did you, you were talking about the spinal column and like releasing and stuff. Like, there are theories that make a lot of sense that, like, for instance, confidence is about the expansion of your chest. There's that woman that has the like power stance TED Talk, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not able...
Be Wonder Woman.
Right.
Like, whether or not
stand there for, 2 minutes in a power pose and you'll feel confident. What if you can't, is it possible, and actors will just say yes, we're just going to say yes, yoga people are going to say yes. If you can't open your body and move your body in particular ways, are there states, are there emotions you're not going to be able to feel? Yeah. And certainly one can go like paraplegics, others, we can talk about that, but what I'm saying is that your ability to feel something is also connected to your ability to actually, like, can your body do confidence? If you're trying to cast a spell asking for something that you physically can't hold or embody yet, how much of that are you going to be able to, like, take in? Yeah. I'm getting it super...
Yes. And I'm so glad that you brought up paraplegics, because I do a lot of physical work. And so there are consequently sometimes assumptions that I am only working with, or that the work is only good for able-bodied people, which is such a lie. I'm not even one of those. Such a lie. Yeah. And some of the I'm trying to be like super precise with my vocabulary. And I'm like, it's one of the many things I appreciate in having conversations with you is the practice of that precision. Yes, exactly. Some of the classes that I have taught that I have seen the most change in the participants and had the most aha moments myself as a facilitator were when there were people in wheelchairs and when there were people who had different ability, who had different abilities, and taking all of the exercises and modifying them. And one of my favorites was in an 8th grade classroom. I had been brought in to do mask work and grand emotions work for a group of 8th graders on a grant that my friend Emily, who was their drama teacher, wrote and was awarded. And I was literally teaching in all of her classes. And so I was gently told confidentially told which ones were anywhere on the autism spectrum and which classes would have people in wheelchairs and things of that nature. And there was a little like, will you be able to do this? And I'm like, yes, this is great. Because the language that I use in workshops is always around movement, not around walking, because movement can be internal. Movement doesn't have to be big. Movement doesn't have to be walking. It doesn't have to be rolling. Like, we can envision movement in our minds. That is still movement. It counts. Yeah. And to modify exercises where everyone is seated and then all of the folks that were able to walk realize, oh my gosh, there's like this huge world like that lives here that I had no idea. Yeah. And none of those aha moments would have happened otherwise. Totally. And it's so important. Like all of the inclusion, all of it. So well, maybe not all of it, but much of the inclusion.
Well, it's interesting because there's your body, and there's a lot of wealth there. Yes. Expanding your flexibility and ability to move your body will shift your feelings. Okay, so anxiety, depression. I was talking earlier today even with a woman who's a nutritionist, and we were talking about, we were given everything we need as humans. We were given breath, we were given movement, moving our bodies, and we were given... Do you need more water?
No, I was saying that's one of the gifts.
Yeah. Breath, movement, and we were given food as a fuel, right? What's interesting is that beyond that, for some reason, we were given this capacity to build universes inside our minds. So when you're thinking about like the bodies we live in aren't necessarily just this one, it's the one you think you have. So some of your limitations of mobility are actually in your mind, in your imagination, before they're actually in your body. What your body's capable of doing is greater. I was geeking out with a yoga teacher, and she said that she had studied for years, then she went to India, and they would just, because they didn't have the same waivers and lawsuits, they would just move people's bodies into positions they didn't think they could do. And when you're confronted with, holy crap, I had no idea I could do that, now I'm doing it, and you have to sort of like, this is actually happening. Remind you that there's this constriction about who we think we are that happens all the time. Yeah. And part of the work of expanding yourself is utilizing your imagination about what your body is. I'm going to talk about sex again right now. Yes. So the fun is, and sex and hypnosis. So the fun thing is that there are things that happen that most people are used to having, their imagination and play engaged in expanding who they think they are and expanding their, like, even their ability certainly in fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your body will respond to things you're thinking about without another human being there, without you even touching yourself. Your body, this imaginary version of who you are and who someone else is and what you're doing and engaged, there's a way in which that's also hypnosis and playing around. So if you think about the way in which you can be more flexible in your own imagination, there's a way in which that can change and shift your emotional state too. Certainly if you like accidentally you're on the bus and you have a sexual fantasy, your state is shifted and you didn't specifically do anything with your body.
Yep.
So the expanse of like, okay, can my muscle structure literally do something? There's ways in which that'll limit who I'm being in the state that I can be in. But then there's no limit to the imaginary state that I can be in.
Yep.
And expanding that is another fun, geeky game that actors just do.
Yeah.
We're just taught how to do that.
Yeah, it's true. And other people are not taught that, and they're not taught to think about the stories that they tell themselves. And do you like where you're at? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, what story are you living in? And what's the story you want to be living in? And if you don't know the story you want to be living in, then how do you think you are going to change the story that you don't want to be living in? Because you have to have the story you want to be living in. And whether that is on a personal level or if that is on a large systemic level, what do you want to build? Like there are all sorts of things to be able to be torn down, whether that's in ourselves or in our world. But there has to be something to take its place. There has to be a vision. There has to be what story do you want to tell? And if you are not telling that story, why?
And people are not aware. They can look at an actor on a stage. They know the actor is playing an imaginary story. Somebody thought of it, they created it. People are not aware that they are living out an imaginary story. The stories they tell about who they are and what they're capable of are hallucinations just as much as the fantasy shows that we watch on Netflix.
Yes.
You are likely living in an imaginary version of your world. And you've decided it's reality. You've created it with the thoughts you have and that sort of thing. Which is why I keep saying, like, we're all actors.
Yep.
There are many of us that are not aware.
Yep. We all have our masks, whether or not we know them or not. We all have our masks. I really want to do this more.
Sweet. So that one was a beautiful point that could be an ending point.
I completely agree. And considering that there is a roommate coming, it feels like a natural ending point as well. But I do.
Well, that's how that went. Thanks for joining us on this episode. Thanks for watching, listening, I don't know, reading, imbibing, however you took this in. Thanks for being here. And if you really enjoyed it, I'd love it if you would do all of the things. Like, share, I don't know, ring a bell, bang a gong, tell a friend, and come back next time. I hope you had as much fun as I did.